The sky above Chicago turned dark as a massive object descended from space. It was an alien ship, larger than anything anyone had ever seen. The people of the city looked up in shock and fear. Cars stopped in the middle of the streets and people ran out of buildings to see what was happening. Panic spread quickly. Phones buzzed with alerts and social media lit up with videos of the enormous craft hovering over the skyline. Major Daniel Carter stood on a rooftop, his eyes fixed on the ship. He was a tall man with short brown hair and a calm expression, even in moments like this. His years of military training had taught him to stay focused when others might lose control. Beside him was Lieutenant Emily Hayes, a young woman with sharp features and quick thinking. She held a tablet in her hands, trying to gather any information she could about the ship. Her fingers moved swiftly across the screen, but there wasn't much data available yet. The ship was sleek and metallic, reflecting the sunlight despite the gloomy clouds around it. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, but this was real. Everyone knew it. The air felt heavy, charged with tension. People were shouting, crying, or just standing still, frozen by the sight above them. Suddenly, a loud voice boomed from speakers that seemed to appear out of nowhere. It echoed across the city, deep and cold. "Humans, we are the Vaylans," the voice said. "We have come to claim your planet. Your resistance is meaningless." Daniel clenched his jaw. He didn't like being spoken to like that, especially not by someone or something that thought they could just take Earth. Beside him, Emily frowned, her brow furrowed as she tried to analyze the transmission. The voice continued, dripping with arrogance. "Your weapons are primitive. You cannot harm us. Surrender now and we may spare some of you." People in the streets below gasped and whispered nervously. Some started running toward their homes while others stayed put, too stunned to move. Soldiers stationed nearby raised their guns, aiming at the ship. But what could bullets do against something so large and advanced? Daniel turned to his team. "Hold your fire," he ordered firmly. His voice carried authority, and the soldiers obeyed without question. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet. Let's assess the situation before we act." Emily nodded, already working on her tablet again. She was trying to intercept the aliens' communication signals. If she could decode them, maybe they could learn something useful about the invaders. For now, all they could do was wait and watch. The Vaylans didn't waste time. Moments later, smaller ships detached from the main vessel and began flying low over the city. They zipped through the air with incredible speed, scanning the area below. One of these scout ships hovered near a group of soldiers who had taken cover in an abandoned building. The soldiers aimed their rifles and fired, but the bullets bounced off the alien craft as if it were made of steel. The Veylan ship responded instantly. A bright beam shot out from its underside, striking the building and reducing it to rubble in seconds. The explosion sent debris flying everywhere, and the sound shook the ground. From the ship came a strange noise, a mechanical laugh. It was mocking, taunting. The aliens found the humans' attempts amusing. Daniel watched the scene unfold through binoculars. His face remained calm, but inside, he burned with anger. These creatures thought they were better than humanity. They thought they could walk all over them. But Daniel knew better. Humans were resilient. They always found a way to fight back. Back at the command center, Emily worked tirelessly. She refused to give up, even though the task seemed impossible. Hours passed and the stress weighed heavily on everyone. Civilians were being evacuated from the city, leaving behind empty streets and shattered windows. The once bustling metropolis now felt like a ghost town. Private Jake Miller sat in a corner of the command center cleaning his rifle. He was young, barely out of training, but eager to prove himself. His blonde hair stuck out messily under his helmet, and his blue eyes darted around the room. He couldn't sit still. The waiting was driving him crazy. "This isn't right," Jake muttered, breaking the silence. "We should be doing something, anything." Daniel glanced at him but didn't say anything. He understood how Jake felt. Everyone wanted to fight back, to show the Vaylans that they weren't going to roll over and die. But rushing into battle without a plan would only get them killed. Emily finally spoke up after hours of silence. "I think I've got something," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. She turned her tablet toward Daniel, showing him lines of code and strange symbols. "I managed to intercept part of their communication. If I can decode more of it, we might find a weakness." Daniel nodded, a flicker of hope crossing his face. "Good work, Lieutenant. Keep at it. We need every advantage we can get." As night fell, the city grew darker, both literally and figuratively. The power grid had been damaged during the earlier attacks, plunging parts of Chicago into darkness. Streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls of deserted buildings. The only sounds were the distant hum of the alien ships and the occasional crackle of radio static. In the command center, candles and flashlights provided dim lighting. Soldiers huddled together, sharing stories or sitting quietly, lost in thought. No one slept. How could they, knowing that the fate of their world rested on their shoulders? Jake couldn't stop thinking about the soldiers who had died earlier. Their bravery haunted him. They had fought back even though they knew it was hopeless. That kind of courage inspired him. He wanted to be like them, to stand up and face the enemy, no matter the odds. Meanwhile, Emily worked nonstop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she pieced together fragments of the Valon's messages. Each new discovery brought her closer to understanding their technology. And then, late into the night, she found something big. "Major Carter," she called out, her voice rising with urgency. Daniel hurried over, leaning down to look at her screen. What he saw made his heart race. "They rely on energy-based systems," Emily explained. "If we can disrupt those systems, we might be able to disable their ships." Daniel's mind raced. This was the break they needed. He immediately contacted Dr. Laura Bennett, a physicist stationed at a nearby research facility. She agreed to help, and together, they began devising a plan. But outside, the Valons continued their game of cat and mouse. Another group of soldiers tried to ambush one of the scout ships only to be met with devastating force. The aliens laughed again, their mechanical voices echoing through the ruins of the city. They truly believed they were untouchable. Daniel knew they couldn't keep playing defense forever. They needed to strike back, and soon. With Emily's discovery and Laura's expertise, they might just have a chance. But it wouldn't be easy. The Valons were arrogant, yes, but they were also powerful. Humanity would have to dig deep and find strength it didn't know it had. As dawn approached, the first rays of sunlight peeked through the clouds. The alien ship loomed overhead, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over them. Daniel took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Humanity wasn't going down without a fight. When aliens mocked our primitive weapons, then faced the consequences, the sun rose over Chicago, casting a pale light over the city that now resembled a war zone. Buildings were damaged or destroyed, streets were deserted, and the air was thick with smoke and ash. The alien ship still hovered menacingly above, its shadow stretching across the ruins like a dark omen. Major Daniel Carter stood on the rooftop of what used to be a bank, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. Beside him, Lieutenant Emily Hayes adjusted her tablet, her face glowing faintly in the dim morning light. Emily had been working non-stop since the previous night, decoding fragments of the Valon's communication signals. Her discovery about their energy-based systems gave everyone a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't enough. They needed a plan, something bold and unexpected. Daniel knew they couldn't keep waiting around while the aliens toyed with them. He turned to Emily and asked, "What else can you tell me?" Emily hesitated before responding. She didn't want to get anyone's hopes up too high, but she also knew they were running out of time. "Their ships are powered by some kind of central energy grid," she explained. "If we disrupt that grid even temporarily, we might be able to disable them. But we'd need something powerful enough to do it." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Like an EMP," he said, referring to electromagnetic pulses. These devices could overload electronic systems, rendering them useless. It was a risky idea, but it was all they had. He immediately contacted Dr. Laura Bennett, a physicist stationed at a nearby research facility. Laura arrived within the hour, carrying a laptop and a bag filled with tools. She was a middle-aged woman with curly brown hair and glasses perched on her nose. Despite the chaos around her, she remained calm and focused. Laura listened carefully as Emily explained the situation. She studied the data on the tablet, her brow furrowing as she processed the information. Finally, she spoke. An EMP could work, she said cautiously. But it would have to be strong enough to penetrate their shielding. We'd need to retrofit some old fighter jets with EMP devices and fly them close to the alien ships. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Retrofitting jets would take time they weren't sure they had. And even if they succeeded, there was no guarantee the EMPs would work. The aliens were advanced far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Still, it was better than doing nothing. We'll do it, Daniel said firmly. Start prepping the jets. As preparations got underway, tensions ran high among the soldiers. Private Jake Miller paced back and forth in the command center, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He couldn't shake the image of the soldiers who had died trying to fight back. Their bravery haunted him, pushing him to prove himself. But every time he looked at the alien ship looming overhead, doubt crept in. How could they possibly win against such overwhelming odds? Jake finally voiced his frustration during a briefing. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to destroy us," he exclaimed, his voice rising. "We've got to hit them hard. Show them we're not afraid." Daniel silenced him with a stern look. "I understand how you feel, Private," he said. "But rushing into battle without a plan will only get people killed. Trust me, we're working on something." Jake clenched his fists but said nothing. He hated feeling powerless, but he respected Daniel enough to follow orders, for now. Meanwhile, Emily continued analyzing the Veilon's transmissions. She spent hours poring over lines of code, searching for any clue that might give them an edge. Late that afternoon, she stumbled upon something intriguing. Hidden deep within the messages was a reference to something called the Singularity. At first, she wasn't sure what it meant, but further investigation revealed hints of fear in the alien's tone whenever it was mentioned. Excited by the discovery, Emily rushed to share it with Daniel. "I think I found something big," she said breathlessly. "The Veilons are scared of whatever this singularity is. If we can figure out what it means, we might be able to use it against them." Daniel frowned. "Do you think it's a weapon? Or maybe a weakness in their technology?" "I'm not sure yet," Emily admitted, "but it's worth looking into." While Emily dug deeper, the team worked tirelessly to prepare the EMP-equipped jets. Captain Ryan Brooks, a decorated pilot known for his skill and bravery, volunteered to lead the mission. He was a tall man with short black hair and piercing green eyes. His confidence inspired those around him, and his willingness to risk everything earned him respect from his fellow soldiers. Ryan inspected the modifications being made to the jets, ensuring everything was in working order. He understood the risks involved, but he also knew they had no other choice. "If this works," he said to Daniel, "we might actually stand a chance." Daniel nodded. "Let's hope so." By nightfall, 3 jets were ready. Each one carried an EMP device, designed to emit a powerful pulse capable of disabling the Veilon ships. The pilots suited up, their faces grim but determined. Jake watched them from the sidelines, wishing he could join them. He felt useless, stuck on the ground while others risked their lives. Before taking off, Ryan addressed the team. "This isn't just about us," he said. "It's about everyone out there who's counting on us. Let's make them proud." With that, the jets roared to life and sped down the runway, disappearing into the dark sky. From the command center, Daniel, Emily, and the others tracked their progress on radar screens. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The jets approached the alien mothership cautiously, staying low to avoid detection. Smaller scout ships patrolled the area, their movements erratic and unpredictable. As the humans drew closer, the Veilons spotted them and sent out a swarm of drones to intercept. Bright beams of light crisscrossed the sky as the aliens fired. relentlessly at the jets. Ryan maneuvered his plane with precision, dodging blasts and weaving through enemy fire. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he focused on the task ahead. Beside him, another pilot narrowly avoided a direct hit, his jet shaking violently from the impact. The third pilot circled around, drawing the enemy's attention away from the others. Finally, they reached the optimal range. Ryan activated the EMP device and a blinding pulse of energy surged outward. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to falter. Their lights flickered and their engines sputtered before shutting down completely. The once mighty vessels plummeted to Earth, crashing into the ground below. Cheers erupted from the command center as the news came in. The EMP had worked. Humanity had struck a blow against the invaders. But the celebration was short-lived. Zorath, the leader of the Valens, appeared on massive holographic screens once again. His expression was one of pure rage. "You dare challenge us?" he snarled. "You will pay for this insolence." Moments later, the alien mothership unleashed its full power. Massive beams of energy lashed out, obliterating entire blocks of the city. Civilians screamed as buildings collapsed, and fires raged uncontrollably. The devastation was overwhelming, and even Daniel struggled to maintain his composure. Back at the command center, Emily stared at her tablet, her mind racing. She couldn't stop thinking about the singularity. Whatever it was, it had to be important. She dove deeper into the alien transmissions, determined to uncover its secrets. Time was running out, and humanity's survival depended on her finding answers. As the night wore on, the weight of the situation settled heavily on everyone. They had won a small victory, but the war was far from over. The Valons were angry, now, and they wouldn't hesitate to destroy everything in their path. Daniel knew they needed to strike back, and soon. He turned to Emily, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Keep digging," he said. "Find out what the singularity is. We need every advantage we can get." Emily nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Outside, the alien ship loomed larger than ever, a constant reminder of the threat hanging over them. The battle was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity wasn't going down without a fight. The aftermath of the EMP strike left Chicago in chaos. The streets were filled with smoke and flames, and the wreckage of alien ships littered the ground. People scrambled to safety, their faces pale with fear. The Valons had retaliated with devastating force, obliterating entire blocks of the city. Buildings crumbled into dust and fires raged uncontrollably. The air was thick with ash and the smell of burning metal. Despite the destruction, there was a glimmer of hope among the survivors. For the first time, humanity had shown that the aliens weren't invincible. Major Daniel Carter stood in the command center, his face grim as he surveyed the damage on the monitors. He clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles turning white. The victory had been short-lived, and now they faced an even greater threat. Zorath's voice still echoed in his mind, full of rage and malice. The Valen leader had made it clear that he wouldn't stop until Earth was under his control or reduced to rubble. Lieutenant Emily Hayes sat nearby, her eyes glued to her tablet. She hadn't slept since the attack began, her focus entirely on decoding the alien transmissions. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, searching for anything that could give them an advantage. The mention of the singularity haunted her. It was clear the Valens feared it, but she still didn't understand why. Whatever it was, it had to be important. Daniel approached her, his boots clicking softly against the concrete floor. "Anything new?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Emily looked up, her expression tense. "I think I'm close," she said. "There's something about the singularity. It might be tied to their power source. If we can figure out what it is, we might be able to use it against them." Daniel nodded. "Keep going. We need answers. And fast." As Emily continued her work, the team prepared for another attempt to fight back. Captain Ryan Brooks and the other pilots who had flown the EMP mission were exhausted, but ready to go again if needed. They knew the stakes were higher than ever. The Valens were angry now, and their attacks were becoming more ruthless. Every second counted. Private Jake Miller paced nervously in the corner of the room. His rifle rested against his shoulder, and his hands trembled slightly. He wanted to help, to do something meaningful, but he felt useless stuck in the command center. Watching others risk their lives while he waited was driving him crazy. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked over to Daniel and spoke up. "Sir, let me join the next mission," he said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. "I want to help. I can't just sit here and do nothing." Daniel studied him for a moment. Jake was young and inexperienced, but his determination was undeniable. "All right," he said finally. "But you follow orders no matter what. Understood?" "Yes, sir," Jake replied, relief washing over his face. Meanwhile, Emily made a breakthrough. Buried deep within the alien transmissions was a reference to the singularity as a catastrophic event, one that could destroy entire civilizations. The Valens spoke of it with dread, as though it were both a weapon and a prophecy. Emily realized it wasn't just a weakness in their technology. It was something far bigger, something they feared would end them. She rushed to share her findings with Daniel. "I think I know what the singularity is," she said breathlessly. "It's not just a term. They're talking about a real phenomenon, something so powerful it could wipe out everything." Daniel frowned. "Do you think we can trigger it? Use it against them?" "I don't know yet," Emily admitted, "but it's worth looking into. If we can figure out how to harness it, we might have a chance." With this new information, Daniel formulated a bold plan. The team would infiltrate the alien mothership to locate its central power core. If they could disable it, or somehow use the singularity against them, they might be able to bring the Valens down once and for all. It was a dangerous mission, but they had no other options. The team assembled quickly. Along with Daniel and Emily, Jake volunteered to join the infiltration squad. Captain Ryan Brooks offered to pilot a captured scout ship to get them inside. The mothership. The small craft had been salvaged from one of the downed alien vessels and retrofitted with human controls. It was risky, but it was their best shot at getting close enough to execute the plan. Before leaving, Daniel addressed the team. "This isn't just about us," he said. "It's about everyone out there who's counting on us. We've already proven we can hurt them. Now it's time to finish the job." The group climbed aboard the scout ship, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Ryan took the controls, his hands steady despite the danger ahead. The ship lifted off silently, blending in with the other Valen vessels patrolling the area. As they approached the mothership, the massive craft loomed above them like a mountain. Its surface shimmered with strange lights, and its sheer size made it seem almost alive. Ryan guided the ship toward a docking bay, careful to avoid detection. Inside, the team disembarked, moving cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors of the alien vessel. The walls pulsed faintly with blue light, and strange symbols glowed on the floors and ceilings. The air was cold and smelled metallic, making it hard to breathe. Emily led the way, using her tablet to track the location of the power core. "It should be just ahead," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's systems. Jake stayed close behind her, his rifle raised. His hands shook slightly, but he kept his focus. This was his chance to prove himself, to show that he wasn't just some rookie. He scanned the area constantly, looking for any sign of danger. Suddenly, a group of alien drones appeared around the corner, their red eyes glowing menacingly. They moved quickly, surrounding the team. Jake fired first, his shots bouncing harmlessly off their metallic bodies. The drones retaliated, sending arcs of electricity toward them. "Fall back," Daniel shouted, pulling Emily behind a pillar for cover. Jake followed, narrowly avoiding a blast that scorched the wall beside him. The team regrouped, trying to come up with a plan. "We can't fight them directly," Daniel said. "We need to outsmart them." Emily nodded. "There's a maintenance tunnel nearby. If we can reach it, we might be able to bypass them." Without hesitation, the team sprinted toward the tunnel entrance, dodging blasts from the drones. Once inside, They found themselves in a narrow passageway lit by dim blue lights. The hum of machinery grew louder as they moved deeper into the ship. After several tense minutes, they reached the chamber housing the power core. It was enormous, pulsing with raw energy that lit up the room in bursts of light. The sight was mesmerizing but terrifying. Emily immediately set to work planting explosives, her hands moving quickly despite the pressure. Jake and Daniel kept watch, scanning the area for any signs of trouble. Time seemed to slow as Emily worked, each second stretching longer than the last. Finally, she turned to them. "It's done," she said. "We need to get out of here now." Just as they started to retreat, Zorath appeared, flanked by armed guards. His towering form filled the doorway and his glowing eyes locked onto the humans. "You dare trespass on my ship?" he snarled, raising a weapon. "You are nothing but insects." Before anyone could react, Jake stepped forward, placing himself between Zorath and Emily. "Run!" he shouted, firing his rifle at the alien leader. The bullets ricocheted harmlessly off Zorath's armor, but the distraction gave Emily and Daniel the time they needed to escape. Zorath roared in anger, blasting Jake with a surge of energy that sent him flying backward. Jake hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his body, but he smiled weakly, knowing he had bought them precious seconds. Daniel hesitated, torn between saving Jake and completing the mission. Emily grabbed his arm, pulling him away. "We have to go," she urged, tears streaming down her face. Reluctantly, Daniel followed, leaving Jake behind. As they fled, the timer on the explosives ticked down. The power core erupted in a blinding explosion, shaking the entire ship. Alarms blared and the lights flickered wildly. The team raced back to the scout ship, their lungs burning as they pushed themselves to the limit. Ryan was waiting for them, the engines already running. "Let's move," he shouted as they climbed aboard. The ship lifted off just as the mothership began to collapse. Massive chunks of debris tumbled through space and the once mighty vessel disintegrated into nothingness. Back on Earth, the remaining Vaylon ships fled the planet, their confidence shattered. The survivors cheered, hugging one another as the realization sank in. They had won. Humanity had fought back against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. In the command center, Daniel and Emily stood side by side watching the stars through the window. Tears streamed down Emily's face as she thought of Jake's sacrifice. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, offering silent comfort. They had lost good people, but their bravery had saved countless others. For now, the battle was over. But as Daniel gazed at the sky, he knew the universe was vast and full of unknown dangers. Humanity had proven its strength, but the fight for survival was far from finished. When aliens mocked our primitive weapons, then faced the consequences. The explosion that tore through the alien mothership lit up the night sky like a second sun. The massive vessel shuddered violently before breaking apart, its pieces tumbling into the atmosphere and burning up in fiery streaks. The shockwave rippled across the city, shaking buildings and sending debris flying in all directions. For a moment, it felt as though the entire world was holding its breath. Major Daniel Carter sat in the cockpit of the scout ship, his hands gripping the edges of his seat as Captain Ryan Brooks guided them away from the chaos. Behind them, the remnants of the Vaylon fleet scattered, fleeing Earth's skies as quickly as they had arrived. The aliens' arrogance had been shattered, replaced by fear and confusion. Zorath's voice no longer boomed over the city. Instead, there was silence, a heavy, eerie quiet broken only by the distant crackle of fires still burning below. Lieutenant Emily Hayes stared out the window, her face pale and streaked with tears. She couldn't stop thinking about Jake Miller. His bravery had saved them all, but at a terrible cost. He had stepped forward without hesitation, knowing he wouldn't survive. His sacrifice weighed heavily on her heart, but she also knew it wasn't in vain. Because of him, humanity had stood a chance, and won. Back on the ground, survivors emerged cautiously from hiding places, their faces filled with disbelief and relief. Soldiers helped civilians navigate the ruins of Chicago, offering water, food, and medical aid where needed. Fires were extinguished, and efforts began to rebuild what had been lost. But even amidst the destruction, there was hope. People hugged each other tightly, sharing stories of how they had survived. Strangers became friends, united by the shared experience of facing something far greater than themselves. Daniel and Emily returned to the command center, which now looked more like a field hospital. Injured soldiers lay on makeshift beds, tended to by medics who worked tirelessly despite their own exhaustion. The air smelled of antiseptic and smoke, and the sounds of coughing and groaning filled the room. Despite everything, there was a sense of camaraderie among the survivors. They had fought together, bled together, and somehow made it through. Emily collapsed into a chair, her body trembling from both physical and emotional exhaustion. Daniel handed her a bottle of water, sitting down beside her. Neither spoke for a long time. Words seemed unnecessary. They both understood the weight of what had happened and the price that had been paid. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "We did it," he said quietly, almost as if saying it aloud would make it real. "They underestimated us, and we showed them they were wrong." Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. "But at what cost?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jake, and so many others." Daniel sighed deeply. "War always comes with loss," he said. "But those losses mean something. They remind us why we fight. For each other, for our future. We'll honor their memory by making sure this never happens again." As dawn approached, the first rays of sunlight peeked through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the battered city. It was a new day, one filled with challenges but also possibilities. The Valons were gone, but their presence lingered, a reminder of how fragile life could be. Humanity had proven its resilience, but it also learned an important lesson. They couldn't afford to let their guard down again. Later that morning, Dr. Laura Bennett joined Daniel and Emily in the command center. Her curly brown hair was messy, and dark circles ringed her eyes, but she carried herself with determination. She held a tablet in her hands, her expression thoughtful. "I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the EMP mission and the infiltration," she said. "There's something you need to know." Daniel leaned forward, his attention sharp. "What is it?" Laura hesitated before continuing. "The singularity. It's not just a weapon or a weakness. It's a natural phenomenon, one that occurs when energy systems reach critical mass. The Valons feared it because they rely entirely on advanced energy technology. If their systems overload, the resulting chain reaction could destroy entire planets." Emily frowned. "So it's like a self-destruct mechanism?" "Exactly," Laura replied. "And based on what we saw during the battle, I think the explosion of their power core triggered the beginning stages of a singularity event. That's why they fled so quickly. They didn't want to get caught in it." Daniel rubbed his temples, processing the information. "Which means we got lucky. Their fear of the singularity gave us the edge we needed." "Yes," Laura agreed. "But it also means we need to prepare for the future. Other alien races may come, and not all of them will underestimate us. We have to invest in research, develop better defenses, and understand the universe around us. Ignorance won't save us next time." Emily nodded slowly. "We can start by studying the wreckage of their ships," she suggested. "There might be technology we can adapt, ways to improve our own systems. And we need to keep decoding their transmissions. There's still so much we don't know." Daniel stood up, his posture straightening as he addressed the group. "Then, that's what we'll do. We'll rebuild, learn, and grow stronger. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." Over the next few days, cleanup efforts continued across the city. Teams of engineers and scientists combed through the wreckage of the alien ships, carefully documenting every piece of technology they found. Some items were sent to research facilities for further analysis, while others were stored securely until they could be studied safely. Civilians pitched in wherever they could, volunteering to clear debris, care for the injured, or provide support to those who had lost everything. In the evenings, people gathered around bonfires sharing stories and singing songs. It was a way to cope with the trauma of the invasion, to find comfort in each other's company. Children played among the ruins, laughing despite the devastation around them. Life went on, stubborn and unyielding. Private Jake Miller's name was spoken often during these gatherings. Stories of his bravery spread quickly, turning him into a symbol of hope and courage. A small memorial was erected in his honor near the command center, with flowers and candles placed at its base. Soldiers saluted as they passed by, and civilians paused to pay their respects. One evening, Daniel stood at the memorial, staring at the flickering flames. Emily joined him, her hands tucked into the pockets of her jacket. Neither spoke for a long time, letting the warmth of the fire fill the silence between them. "He was brave," Emily said finally. "Braver than most of us." Daniel nodded. "He reminded me of why we fight. Not for glory or revenge, but because someone has to stand up for what's right. Someone has to protect the people who can't protect themselves." Emily looked at him, her eyes softening. "Do you think we'll see them again? The Valens, I mean." "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But if they come back, we'll be ready. And if anyone else shows up, they'll learn the same lesson the Valens did. Humanity doesn't give up easily." The two of them stood there for a while longer, watching the fire dance in the cool night air. Above them, the stars twinkled brightly, indifferent to the struggles of the beings below. Somewhere out there, beyond the reaches of human understanding, other worlds existed. Some might be friendly, eager to share knowledge and build bridges. Others might be hostile, seeking conquest and domination. But for now, Earth was safe. The scars of the invasion would heal, and the lessons learned would shape the future. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge yet, and emerged victorious. It was a victory born of teamwork, ingenuity, and sacrifice, and it was a reminder that even the most primitive weapons, wielded with courage and determination, could change the course of history. As the fire burned low, Daniel and Emily turned to leave. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to rebuild and grow. But for tonight, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, grateful to be alive and hopeful for what lay ahead. The days following the battle were a blur of activity. The city of Chicago, though scarred and broken, began to stir with life again. People worked tirelessly to clean up the wreckage, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they had survived an invasion from a far superior force. Major Daniel Carter walked through the streets, observing the efforts with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Pride because humanity had shown incredible resilience, and sorrow because he couldn't shake the faces of those who hadn't made it, including Jake Miller. Lieutenant Emily Hayes was equally busy. She spent most of her time in a makeshift lab set up near the command center, poring over pieces of alien technology salvaged from the destroyed ships. Her fingers moved quickly across keyboards and touchscreens as she analyzed every fragment, searching for clues about the Valens' advanced systems. Dr. Laura Bennett joined her frequently, offering insights and theories based on her expertise in physics. Together, they hoped to unlock secrets that could help humanity defend itself in the future. "It's fascinating," Laura said one afternoon, holding up a small, glowing device. "This appears to be some kind of energy converter. If we can reverse engineer it, we might be able to create power sources far more efficient than anything we currently have." Emily nodded, her eyes lighting up with excitement despite her exhaustion. "And this could give us an edge if another alien race ever comes knocking," she added. "We can't afford to be caught off guard again." While the scientists worked, soldiers like Daniel focused on rebuilding and strengthening Earth's defenses. Military bases around the world received updated protocols, emphasizing rapid response and adaptability. Training exercises became more rigorous, simulating scenarios involving extraterrestrial threats. Civilians were encouraged to participate in community drills, learning basic survival skills and emergency procedures. Private Jake Miller's sacrifice continued to inspire everyone. His story spread beyond Chicago, reaching news outlets across the globe. He became a symbol of bravery and selflessness, proof that even the youngest and least experienced among them could make a difference. Memorials dedicated to him popped up in cities worldwide, each one adorned with flowers, candles, and heartfelt messages. One evening, Daniel visited the memorial near the command center. It had grown larger since its creation, with plaques bearing the names of other fallen soldiers placed beside Jake's. Families came regularly to pay their respects, leaving mementos and photographs. Daniel stood quietly, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched a young boy place a toy spaceship at the base of the monument. "Do you think he'd be proud?" Emily asked softly, appearing beside him. She held a cup of coffee in her hands, steam rising into the cool night air. Daniel glanced at her before turning his gaze back to the memorial. "I think so," he replied. "He gave everything to protect us. That's something worth being proud of." Emily sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes I wonder what he would have done if he'd lived, where he would have gone, what he would have accomplished." "He'd have kept fighting," Daniel said firmly. "That's who he was. Someone who didn't back down, no matter the odds." The two fell silent, letting the moment linger. Above them, the stars twinkled brightly, unaffected by the struggles below. For centuries, humans had looked to the heavens with wonder and curiosity. Now they looked up with a mix of awe and caution, knowing that not everything out there was friendly. As weeks turned into months, the world slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. Schools reopened, businesses resumed operations, and families rebuilt their homes. But beneath the surface, things were different. Governments collaborated more closely than ever before, sharing resources and intelligence to prepare for potential threats. Space exploration programs received increased funding, driven by a newfound urgency to understand the universe and to ensure humanity wasn't caught unprepared again. In the lab, Emily and Laura made significant progress. They successfully replicated parts of the Valon energy system, creating prototypes for portable EMP devices capable of disabling advanced electronics. These devices were distributed to military units worldwide, giving Earth a powerful new tool in its arsenal. Additionally, they discovered evidence suggesting that the singularity, the catastrophic event feared by the Valons, was tied to quantum instability. Though they couldn't fully grasp its mechanics yet, they theorized that controlling such phenomena could provide humanity with unparalleled defensive capabilities. "We're just scratching the surface," Laura admitted during one late-night discussion. "But even this much is groundbreaking. Imagine if we could harness these technologies responsibly, not just for defense, but for improving life on Earth." Emily smiled faintly. "It's a big dream, but I think we're getting closer." Meanwhile, Daniel found himself reflecting on the broader implications of the invasion. The Valons had mocked humanity's primitive weapons, dismissing them as insignificant. Yet it was precisely that primitiveness, combined with creativity, determination, and teamwork, that had turned the tide. Humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure, and to unite when faced with a common enemy. He shared these thoughts during a press conference organized to address the global public. Standing before cameras and reporters, Daniel spoke calmly but passionately. "The Valons underestimated us," he said. "They thought our lack of advanced technology made us weak. What they failed to understand is that strength isn't measured by the tools we wield. It's measured by the spirit within us. We proved that courage, ingenuity, and unity can overcome even the greatest challenges." His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about humanity's place in the cosmos. People began looking outward with renewed interest, eager to explore the stars while remaining vigilant against potential dangers. Astronomers scanned the skies for signs of other civilizations, hoping to establish peaceful contact, or at least identify potential threats early. Despite these advancements, Daniel knew complacency was dangerous. The Valons might never return, but the universe was vast and unpredictable. Other races could emerge, bringing with them unknown intentions. To prevent another crisis, humanity needed to stay prepared. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel gathered his team in the command center. The room buzzed with energy as soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike listened intently. On a large screen, at the front of the room, Images of the alien mothership's destruction played silently, a stark reminder of what had been achieved. "This isn't the end," Daniel began, addressing the crowd. "It's a new beginning. We've taken the first step toward securing our future, but there's still much work to be done. We need to keep studying the Valon's technology, improving our defenses, and expanding our understanding of the universe. We must remain united, not just as nations but as a species." Applause erupted throughout the room, echoing off the walls. People cheered not just for victory, but for the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Outside, the sun rose higher in the sky, casting golden light over the recovering city. Birds chirped in the distance, and children laughed as they played in the streets. For now, Earth was safe. Its people had endured, adapted, and triumphed. The scars of the invasion would fade with time, but the lessons learned would endure forever. Humanity had stared into the abyss and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. As Daniel left the command center, he paused to look at the horizon. The skyline of Chicago, though damaged, stood tall against the blue sky. Somewhere, beyond those buildings, beyond the atmosphere, the stars beckoned. They represented endless possibilities, opportunities to grow, to learn, and to connect with others across the galaxy. But they also served as a reminder. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. And whether the next encounter brought friendship or conflict, Earth would be ready. With a final glance upward, Daniel stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held.